Hey everybody, my name is Adam Cohn. I'm the Vice President of Broadcasting, Marketing, and Programs here at NCMA Boston. Welcome to our final webinar, Meet the Speaker interview, so to speak, of the 2024 to 2025 program year. This will be the final webinar we're having. In June, we are going to be having our social. That's going to be at King's Entertainment. I'll tell you about all that later on at the end of this, but this will be the final webinar for our program year. We're heading into the summer. Things are going to start slowing down. People are on vacation. One thing that doesn't slow down is the government. So I've got two heavy hitters here. I got my Capital Edge shirt on because I got two folks here from Capital Edge, Sammie Ozmar and Marie Salamone. Sammie is a manager at Capital Edge. Marie is partner, grand poobah extraordinaire, does everything at the company. You know her from the merch workshop. She's done these before. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah.
My pleasure. All right. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. We'll start with Sammie.
Yeah, sure. So as Adam mentioned, my name is Sammie Ozmar. I am a manager with Capital Edge Consulting. I've been with Capital Edge ever since I graduated, so about 7 years now, where I also interned for 2 summers before that. Since starting here at Capital Edge, I've kind of touched on a lot of different areas that we have to offer. I started with procurement, kind of transitioning into some of the other business systems. I worked on a lot of incurred cost submissions and rate models, but I've recently transitioned in the last 2 years or so into kind of our grant space where we support our clients with, their grants and their cooperative agreements. I'm doing a lot of general award administration, some quarterly reporting support, billing the government, subrecipient monitoring. So I spend a lot of my time there, but I also spend a lot of my time in SAM.gov and helping with entity registrations as well. That's a little bit about me.
And Miss Marie, how about you?
So, hi, everybody. I'm Marie Salamone, partner with Capital Edge. I just reached this month my 14th year with the company and looking forward to many more. I am a focus area is basically cost accounting and contract compliance. I do dabble in certain other business systems, particularly property estimating, but cost accounting and the accounting system is basically my world. A lot of experience with indirect rates, incurred cost submissions, forward pricing rates, CAS, disclosure statements, you name it. But I also have done a lot of work with supporting companies with their SAM.gov registrations.
Excellent. So I think I kind of buried the lead at the start here, ladies. So you're all here because one, you've read the title, two, you've seen our emails, or you just subscribed to our YouTube channel. So the webinar here from May is registering to become a U.S. government contractor. SAM, cage codes, DUNS, UEI, and NAICS codes. This is all extremely important. I know when I started out in the industry, it was like you're getting thrown all these acronyms at you, and I'm like, what are you people talking about? But the longer I've been in the industry, and I've been in this industry since 2015, so almost 10 years doing various roles off and off, what people don't understand is something as basic as SAM.gov, which is a lot of what this is going to focus on. These two ladies are going to help you, and I'll save that to the end where I normally have my question, but one of the big things that they're going to be talking about during this entire webinar is avoiding some of those common pitfalls with SAM.gov. SAM has constant registration. You have to redo every single year. What's a cage code versus a DUNS versus what's a UEI? Why do companies have 10,000 different NAICS codes if they're one entity? And these are going to be some of the questions that we want you all to actively come and ask questions of because you have this amazing resource in Sammie and Marie. So that's a little bit of that. Let's talk about what got you both into the contracts world. Sammie apparently was poached right out of university and everything else, just absolutely saw like, government contracts. I like that Capital Edge guy that's Chad. I'll go there. Why don't you both tell us a little bit about like what got you into this field? Because this is a fun question. I remember my first ever contracts job, the director of contracts. It was my second interview. He goes, okay, so how'd you get into this? Everyone has their own story. No one goes into school and goes into college to get into government contracting. Everyone's got their own unique story. What's your unique stories?
You go first, Sammie.
Sure. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I interned for 2 summers, while I was still in college. But what I didn't mention was that my dad actually used to work at Capital Edge. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door, and really got to understand government contracting. And you're right, people don't go to school to learn government contracting. I learned finance. I studied finance and marketing. But that translated well into what I wanted to do at Capital Edge. And so once I got into interning here, I just, loved the people, loved the information, because it's a different kind of realm of knowledge. And, it just in turn made me want to come on full time, and I've never left. So that's how I got into government contracting.
Fantastic. Marie, what about you?
So much like you said, this is a way you find yourself to government contracting in a very unique way. Mm-hmm. I was an engineer many more years ago than Sammie. We won't mention how many. And I graduated and found myself in a consulting role, and then moved on to construction forensic engineering consulting, which is a mouthful for basically when companies that are constructing buildings and manufacturing facilities end up in some sort of litigation or dispute with their contractor or architect engineers. And I was in this consulting role, and I was reading contracts. I was interpreting, building code and other regulation and what applied. And in that world, being behind schedule is a really big issue. And that basically translates to damages and delays that cost people money. And I had a mid-career switch. Basically, my group that I was working with got really slow, and I was lent out to the same company's government contracting services group. And in that group, it kind of translated really easily because of the skill sets that I had with my prior consulting role. So I kind of lend myself. My skill sets were very suitable to indirect rate calculations. And so it just grew from there. And I've had a very long, happy career ever since.
I love it. All right. So let's give me more of a quick hitting question. But what's one thing in contracts that you both really like? Me, I'm a nerd. I like negotiating. I like arguing with companies. That's fun arguing because, again, it's at the end of the day, it's about getting the mutual terms and conditions. But I enjoyed that in the post-award world. What about for you both? Now, Sammie, you might have a little bit more of a unique answer than maybe Marie does because, again, like you've told us, you have been exposed to this field when you were an intern for 2 years in college. So you actually kind of curious on your answer, too, because you might have a bit more of a unique insight.
Well, and, that's actually what I love most about government contracting is that I've touched so many of the areas that I talked about before. And, getting a little bit more of that as an intern, you just learn how much that the industry has to offer, and getting an idea of the whole process and how it all fits together, I think is so fascinating and so important to understand. And while you have this potential to, try all these different areas in government contracting, you're never doing the same thing. And that's also what I love about consulting as well. But even if you were involved in a specific area, like you focus solely on, business systems or, incur cost emissions and rate models, that still is always changing and there's always updates to that. So you're still always learning. So I think that's something that I really enjoy about government contracting is I'm never going to, do the same thing for the rest of my life.
I love that. Marie, what about you? Because I know you said you had the career change. So there had to be something that kind of dragged you into the world that you just kind of gravitated towards.
So for me, it's about clients, helping the clients and helping them learn how to be better at what they do, even though I generally don't have much insight into what they do, on a day-to-day basis, whether they're providing services, goods to the U.S. government. There are common themes to this government compliance that they have to tick the box on. And government contractors, in large part, especially from a cost accounting perspective, have the choice to make their own cost accounting practices as long as they fit the definitions of the regulation. And, some companies have challenges with that. And then just being able to these are real dollars for these companies that, the decisions they make with government contracts impacts revenue. And
yes.
so I always like to say I want to help the client keep the dollars that they've already received in revenue, because if they can't support it in audit, it's all going to be clawed back. So being able to help companies be more successful in what they do from a government contract compliance perspective. That's for me.
I knew there was a reason you and I got along so well, for many reasons. But okay, in all seriousness, let's shift focus here real quickly, going from the contracts world into the pinnacle, right? NCMA. Become the gold standard bearer. So have you both? I can't even ask Marie this question because she just ran our March workshop. So I know her answer already. But Sammie, have you ever hear of NCMA before? And if so, have you ever been involved with NCMA?
I have heard of NCMA. I wouldn't say I was necessarily involved when I lived up in the Virginia area. I've been to a couple events, but not as involved as I probably could have been. But I relocated to Tampa and have recently, joined the NCMA Suncoast chapter. So I'm hoping to get involved there as much as I can, coming up in the next, couple of years. So
I like it. All right, Marie, I know you've clearly heard of NCMA because this is not your first rodeo with us here, but let me retool your question. Throughout your time in volunteering with NCMA, because for those that don't know, Marie just was our VP of our March workshop that we just had a massive successful event back in March of 2025. So Marie, I know you've heard of NCMA before. So being able to be involved with NCMA for so long and now serving as a chapter officer, what is one thing that you've really liked throughout your time volunteering with NCMA?
What I like about NCMA, quite frankly, is the people, right? Yep. And the opportunities that are provided to the chapters. Boston in particular, there are a number of others where the chapters are very active, and there are so many opportunities for learning, for networking, and getting more involved with the government contracting community, right? It seems so niche. But there are a lot of people that the government employs, and a lot of people that that support the government contracts. So for me, being involved and being able to help make that community bigger and stronger, to me, is the reward. That's what makes it so successful.
All right. So we've kind of teased the listeners and the viewers long enough. Let's get into the webinar topic of registering to become a U.S. government contractor. And I'm just going to say this. This is for all levels of contracts personnel. This is not for newbies. This isn't for intermediate, mid-level, senior manager. It's every single level. Because of whether it's the current administration, previous administrations, upcoming administrations, SAM.gov has to be the standard bearer. It has to be intuitive. And I kind of learned a couple of interesting things at SAM.gov that I think was genius to do. So tell the people a little bit about what they can expect to learn during this webinar.
You want to take a shot at that, Sammie?
Yeah, sure. So for those of you who are aware of SAM.gov, you know that it's always changing. There's always going to be new resources, new capabilities, changes coming with the new administration. So that's something that we're gonna tackle on this webinar. We're gonna talk about what those changes are, what those capabilities are, how to use those capabilities and resources that are on there. And then we're obviously gonna get into a deep dive of the registration, how to complete it accurately, how to make sure you're, answering everything that you need to answer on there, the documents that you're gonna need to fill out that information, and just how to make sure that you're handling that appropriately. And because as Adam mentioned before, it's something you need to do annually. So as these things change and as your entity changes, we'll be able to help you, walk through how to complete that, as you're going through these changes.
So just to follow up, if anybody's ever used TurboTax and you get to a question and you don't know how to answer it and you don't know how to figure out how to answer it, when I first started working with SAM.gov, I found it was the same thing and same challenges as TurboTax. I thought, well, how do I go and I get help to understand? Because even though their questions are yes and no, every question can be nuanced. Well, in my situation, it's this, that, or the other thing. And we have, as Capital Edge consultants, and Sammie in particular, we really have a lot of experience in going through, because we've worked with a lot of companies with a lot of unique nuances, especially if you're filling it out for the first time. And then, like everywhere else in the government, SAM.gov is changing, and a lot of platforms are being added to SAM.gov that were in other places with the government. We're seeing that across the board in other areas too. So SAM.gov gets updated on a regular basis. And I would like a little bit of a spoiler to share with everybody.
Please, by all means.
The reps and certs that are included in SAM.gov are not insignificant. These are very important. They can be very challenging to answer. And we have a lot of support. We at Capital Edge have developed a very intensive tool that can help companies with their SAM.gov registration. One of the biggest challenges I think companies face is, the person that, managed all their SAM.gov registrations, suddenly won the lottery and is no longer available, and nobody has any information how to access their current registrations. And quite frankly, that's an administrative nightmare. And it can impact your revenue if this is not done correctly. So we're here to talk through all these things and answer any questions you may have during this webinar.
Yep. And thank you both. Again, there's a reason I said this is important for any level of anyone in the contracts industry. I don't care if you're contracts, subcontracts, procurement. I don't care if you're an assistant. It doesn't matter your title. If you touch government contracts, and they're like Marie said, if there's one person, and I've been this, because we did a little pre-show before we hit the record button. I'm like, I feel like there's sometimes like one person that handles everything that has to do with SAM.gov and the annual reps and certs and the annual update and everything else. If they leave and there's nobody else cross-trained how to do it, it's like help, just like, wave the flag, like help, someone over here, help. It's very important. So throughout this, you've heard from Sammie, you've heard from Marie. The event is called Registering to Become a U.S. Government Contractor. Ladies, the floor is yours. Final thoughts before I hit the end button here.
Sammie?
I was just going to say, thank you so much for listening to us today. We look forward to hearing from you guys on the webinar. Come with your questions. We'll be ready to answer them in any way that we can.
We're really excited for this webinar, and we enjoy supporting NCMA Boston in any way we can, and looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks on the webinar.
Excellent. So again, registering to become a U.S. government contractor, SAM, CAGE, DUNS, UEI, and NAICS. Bunch of different stuff that you're going to learn during this webinar. Please come with questions. The webinar room is going to open at 11:55 a.m. The webinar will start promptly at noon. Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. It'll be virtual on StreamYard. When you register, you will get a special link that will take you to the StreamYard platform where the webinar is being held. And ladies, thank you both so much. And Capital Edge is not a sponsor of this, but I got the Capital Edge shirt. They're both from Capital Edge. I played into the gimmick. If anybody knows me, play into the gimmick. Have a great time. Now, I told you at the end, I'll tell you all about our last event coming up for this program year. And that is going to be at King's Dining and Entertainment in Burlington, Massachusetts. It'll be on Wednesday, June 26th. The times will be to be announced. Wednesday, June 25th. I don't know why I said 26th. The 25th. I will have the times announced. We will have a special email that goes out about that. Please come. I've been playing this. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a great time. I'm thinking the initial time is from 5 to 8, but I still got to talk it over with the powers that be and double check on all that, including with the bowling alley. So we're going to have a great time. Final webinar, ladies. I'm really looking forward to it. I want to thank you both for your time, and we will all see you during the webinar.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.